So this is Jennifer Showalter and my reflection on the IRIS site regarding classroom management. Classroom management for me comes into play every day, and I always get nervous at the beginning of the year going to meet my new students and what are they going to be like and what are their challenges going to be. So, for special education, classroom management is very important, but it's also important that you're flexible with each student and your classroom. For example, if I'm teaching one lesson and I lose one student because they are distracting the other students, it's like a chain reaction. Most of the time I have like these little things I set down um, in front of them to continue on teaching, and they know that their choice is not a good choice right now, and I set that on their desk, and they sometimes will respond to it and change their behavior, and we can continue on teaching without me having to stop. um, if I am teaching a lesson and mind you, all of my students have different learning exceptionalities and disabilities, very cross categorical. And if one student becomes frustrated because of how a lesson is being presented, not only does that put off a chain reaction because um, they verbalize their frustration. And then that in turn annoys another student. And then I have all the students frustrated and I'm getting frustrated. So I have really learned to differentiate my instruction and how I interact with the students. Especially, or what has really worked this year for me is not really ability grouping because hi Axe, sorry, the dog's in the background. Um, Not ability grouping the students, but working in small groups with each student in um, in order for them to be able to work with their peers and know which ones cannot be paired together or cannot come back to a learning center at the same time. Um, the district that I've worked in forever, it still is not very culturally diverse. We have, it's mainly a white population, high poverty. We have some American Indians and some African Americans, but not diverse as what you would see more towards southern Minnesota and that. Um, but that doesn't mean that our students are any less diverse. They have their own challenges in that that happen each day. They could have had a fight in the morning. They could have come to school and they're having an off day because they didn't have their medication to take. They could be hungry. They didn't get dinner and they didn't get breakfast this morning. They could be scared. I have a student who I'm dealing with right now who I've had to get social services involved because of some things that are going on in the home. Sorry. That was the dog again. So just because we're not diverse um, with the melting pot of cultures, our kids are very diverse for their own reasons. And because of that, I feel that it's very important to know each student and get to know them, um, and what drives them and what motivates them and what fears do they have. What do they enjoy doing? Just making it so there's that open communication and they feel safe for, or able to talk to me or one of my colleagues. One thing that dawned on me as far as when I was watching the culturally diverse portion on Ira's site was that I myself as an adult, I am an interrupter. And I don't know if it's because I've just gotten older and if I don't interrupt it, I like lose it. So I'm constantly writing notes down and consciously working myself to not interrupt when another adult is talking. Um, so I thought that was, not only are we, working on things with the students, but I'm always trying to work on things myself. I've learned, as far as classroom behavior management, threats do not work. Bribes sometimes works, but they're short-lived. Like I just did a pizza party for my sixth grade class, and they just thought that that was the bomb because they met their AR goals. Um, I have like a sucker tree, and some of them respond to that. Some of them love stickers. But again, those are, surface behaviors. Uh, our district implemented PBIS quite a few years ago, but this year they started it at the 7th through 12th grade level. And I haven't really heard too many updates on how that's going. Our district is separated into 3 buildings, and the elementary and the high school are on one end of the town, and the Von Steffensrud is on the other end of the town. The Von Steffensrud houses pre-K through 3rd grade. PBIS down there, the kids are excited. They get tickets. They get their names called weekly if they're drawn for the Blue Streak Pride recipient. And what our we used our mascot, which were the Chisholm Blue Streaks. So we spell out streaks, and S is safe, T is trustworthy, R is responsible and respectful, E is eager to learn, A is achieve goals, K is kind, and S is standing strong and supportive. So that's what our district uses. So I follow that model and try and get the older students in grades like 4 through 6 excited about it again. Trying to think up new things. When I was the art teacher 2 years ago, I actually did with my art class, I ran a competition and we designed a new logo for PBIS to get shirts made. And I did that from kindergarten through 6th grade, and one of the 3rd graders' design was picked, and we actually got to go to the print shop, and he got to watch how the shirts were made, and and then we ordered them, and we got the whole school or whoever wanted to order them could at a reasonable price, and that was really exciting. What else? I redirect behavior all the time. I ignore behavior. I use cues and signals with some students. I talked a little bit about proximity. I know which students can't be together or near each other. When I start a lesson, depending on which group I'm working with, I always kind of do that hook, line, and sinker to get them interested or motivated. And if something before I call them out or have to have a discussion, with them about behavior, as far as a surface management of behaviors, I always give them an opportunity or a chance to make a better choice. And dealing with so many different learning disabilities and exceptionalities, um, I found that negativity fails all the time. The kids need praise for doing good. It's not, um, they have low confidence, low self esteem. So just the praise and being consistent really, really helps. Um, the way that I do run my classroom is normally I teach special ed for fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, and I teach reading, math, spelling, and language. And as any general ed classroom teacher would, I do a PowerPoint at the beginning of the year, talk about, what does it look like when we walk in the hallway? What does it look like when you come into the classroom? If we're doing a certain activity, what does it look like? I have magnets I put up, what you need to, when you come into the classroom, what you need to get, bring them to your area. Um, so we go over that. And another big thing with special ed students is if there are any schedule changes or changes in routine or transition, we try and head that off by talking about it before it happens if we know it's going to happen. Last week, I think it was last week, we were evacuated because of a gas leak. Well, that was not expected. And I'm on crutches and I have to worry about, my kids there first. So that was interesting because that was not something that was planned. We didn't have time to grab anything. It was 20 below, and we're having to go over it to the high school, which is just across the street, which was very fortunate because normally our evacuation site, we have to walk up to City Hall, and it was very cold. So, this in November, my schedule changed somewhat. I got pulled down to the Von Steffensrud to lend support because we have a caseload of 33 down there and one special education teacher. That teacher went out on medical leave, so my SPED partner and I, in addition to our caseloads, have now taken on 33 additional students, which means paperwork, meetings. It just encompasses a whole different schedule where um, we're still working on it since November with students because I've had to give up my students to him in the morning, and I go down and take care of the first, second, and third grade students. We do have someone that does pre-K and kindergarten students. So that change is a work in progress as far as managing behaviors. As my partner, my SPED colleague, does things differently than I do them. Um, I make sure to try and have students be held accountable. And by doing that, I let them participate at the beginning of the year where we decide what rules, we should have in our classroom and how we should implement those. And I always have those posted and they sign it. And so they know, what is expected. Some positive, or I do use positive and negative consequences. Some consequences, they clip down on the behavior chart. I have them complete a behavior report sometimes to go home, and then at that point we also have a Swiss Suite. It's where we put in, the behaviors online instead of doing paper office referrals. Another area, not for necessarily students, but for me as an adult that I'm working on, is teacher jargon. A lot of times I catch myself talking or using a bigger vocabulary word that they get totally lost on. So making sure that I am bringing how I'm communicating with them down to their level so they do understand and aren't confused. I talked about, let's see, I think the Iris website, it's a great website. I used it before we had to talk about transitions. There's a place for transitions on there when I had a different course. And it's just a good website that I've bookmarked to find all different ideas. Um, when I was looking for like an outside educational article in that, um, one that came to mind, and I consider it, my Bible, of course, is, the first 6 weeks of school. But that I didn't feel that that was an educational article. So I did go on to the American Psychological Association, and there was an article on classroom management, and that 15% of special education students need behavior support plans put in place. And the common reasons are um, social skills and conflict resolution and developmental delays. And I can totally see that. A lot of my students, they go to what we call adapt for them to learn how to work with their peers, or just even certain social cues. Um, and I have two students that I deal with on a daily basis who they cannot themselves sit down and resolve the conflict. So we're working on that. Well, what does this look like? What does that sound like? We do role play. Um, my SPED colleague and I, we problem solve and collaborate on our students all the time. Um, And I'm very grateful for that, because some days you are just so frustrated. You can't think of what can I do, to get this? What can I do to have the student understand what our goal is? And in special education, we're writing goals all the time for them. And quite a few of our students this year, which we haven't had in the past, do have behavior plans and manifestations and FBAs. So um, that's something new this year, and it's a process learning. So I guess just in wrapping up, for me, the climate of my classroom is very important, not only for my role for modeling that for students, but for students to be able to effectively learn and feel safe in that environment. And that would be an environment that's positive and that's conducive to learning. Again, flexible too, but I feel it's important to respect my students, as I want their respect, and I feel that when they know that I treat them with respect, it helps me gain a trusting relationship with them. And I do recognize that they are all different, and they all need to be supported in different ways. Yes, we have this, overarching comprehensive behavioral plan, but when we get down to it, each of them needs a behavior support in a different way, because they have different learning exceptionalities. Uh, One thing that popped into my mind was Gardner's intelligences, and look, just thinking he had always laid out multiple ways that you can relay information. Um, and by me recognizing and distinguishing between, all of the students' unique qualities, it shows them that I care, I understand, I want to help them, I And in order to do that, I need to know I can help them. And that's where communication is so important. Um, like I said, I established the expectations, right away, immediately, and reinforce them throughout the school year. This school year has been a little different as we've had to, with my schedule change and my colleagues' schedule change. We've had to revise and go over that, and we've had some bumps, but we are working through them with the students. And um, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. We recognize that, we're always going to have a few bumps in the road, and we work through them as a team and as, teacher, student, teacher, class. Um, I like to take time, wherever I can find it, to pull my students aside, listen to them, become excited about what they're excited about. Just ask them about their day, greet them, good morning, and so, and encouraging them to do their best. Um, there's been a ton of videos on some of the teacher blogs about how these teachers, they greet their students outside of their rooms in the morning with either a fist bump or a cool handshake or a little dance. And I think it totally changes, or it can totally change how a student who may have come to school ornery or crabby or hungry, it puts their mind in a different frame. Like, okay, I'm here now and we're going to get this done and we'll figure it out. Um, so yeah, positive classroom and school climate is what I strive for, because the students then can come in knowing that there's expectations um, and learning and motivation, and it's a way of bringing motivation and happiness into their lives, but also into their learning. Another um, educational person that we've been focusing on this year is Ross Green, and I know a lot of my other classmates in this class and previous classes had talked about him. And we actually, at our summit at the beginning of the year, we got to go and listen to him. And one thing that stands out in regards to classroom management and behavior management and FBAs and BIPs and all of those is that every student can learn. It's what's in their way that's preventing them from learning. And I feel the same with behavior. Every student can behave, every adult can behave, but there's a choice for adults. What are they, why aren't they behaving? Well, for students, a lot of it sometimes goes along with their disability, their thinking process. So they can behave and make the right choices, but they need to know how to do that. They need guidance on how to be able to learn and behave, and that we're going to break down whatever's standing in their way and we're there to help. So, that is, I think, about all I had to say. I know I went way over and I'm rambling, but signing off. Thank you.